Hello, you potheads. Alright, so on top of like the recap stuff, if I want to talk about anything newsworthy of this last week, I'm also going to be posting these types of videos where I just talk about a subject I want to talk about. So, let's open up a Dr. Pepper. Gaming community, we need to have a talk about open worlds. Now, I get it, when there is a lot of something coming out, you get sick of it. I get it. I've had that feeling before, especially when it comes to like gacha games or battle royales. Like everybody's trying to chase that trend. It's like, oh man, this thing's cool, let's work on it. But there is a point where the genre just is a genre, and you just have to pick and choose what you want. Every genre has started out like this. The thing I want to talk about today, when it comes to more so that, is the misconception on how open world games are and should be. And I thought about this topic because of how people talk about Breath of the Wild. Obviously, it's a lot of minority of people thinking this, but I feel like it's a type of people that shit on Breath of the Wild are the type of people who don't understand good open world games or open world games in general. The main criticism that people give to open world games is nothing to do, or so much wasted space, and the world is empty. And that's part of why people like open worlds. Traversing a world that feels real and feels lived in, or the lack thereof, depending on what the story is going for, depends on not what you show, but also what you don't. Not every single square inch of a game is going to be loaded with secrets and items and NPCs to talk to that probably say nothing of worthwhile anyway, so who cares? The reason why open world games feel immersive is because of the combination of the emptiness and when you actually get to do stuff. And it depends on what that stuff is. But not only is it the emptiness, but it's how you work with it. Does it work with the game? Does it work with the world? Is it fascinating enough to immerse you? Does it look good? Does it feel like you're traveling? So, my first example, I'm going to talk about a good open world experience, and that experience being Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild has things that really tell the story of the land and make you feel like, yeah, a war happened and shit's fucked up. Just because a trail has only a few buildings or no buildings and there is a plain doesn't mean that is a worthless area. Going from one point to another point doesn't have to be action-filled. The calmness of the travel heightens the action when you get into it. And Breath of the Wild has so much going on in the overworld, but just because every single little bit, every meter, isn't filled with an enemy, an item, or something going on, there are some people out there who just writes it off as empty and boring, when really it's immersive and smart. Being in the desert, being in the plains, being on Death Mountain, all of these things, all these aesthetics tells you what's going on in the world, and you feel like you are, again, traveling to point A to point B, and you are really on an adventure. Like Lord of the Rings. Like, when you think about the adventure, like, you think about the big points, you think about the war, you think about them sneaking into the area. A lot of their trip, which in the movies was filled with just crossfades, a lot of their trip is just walking. And it's boring to see that, and that's why they don't show just part of the trilogy, like the second book is just, and then he saw a rock, and then they kept on walking. Like, that's not what happens. In a movie sense, yeah, that would be boring. You wouldn't want to see that. Video games are supposed to be the immersive experience where you're the character, so you do that. You travel, and Breath of the Wild gives you so many travel options outside of even fast travel when you complete a shrine, which is a good way of getting you that fast travel point. But with the climbing and gliding, you can traverse the world in any way you want. You could stay on the trail. You could get a horse. You could do what you want, and that's a good sense of adventure. An adventure doesn't have action 100% of the time. But now look at a world like Assassin's Creed Origins, where the only thing of note is towns. Crossing a desert isn't fun. Aesthetically, it's not pleasing, and traversal options are non-existent. You're just running across the desert, doing nothing, nothing's interesting, and you don't really feel like you're traveling. How the game sets itself up, you're more so just trying to get to the next point. And that itself is interesting. Assassin's Creed Origins, even though people like the game, is an example of a bad overworld. Also, you can say the same about a lot of MMORPGs, especially the free-to-play ones, where like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV have good open worlds, but you start getting to the free-to-play ones, and it's just standard assets, and you're trying to get to point A to point B, and there's nothing really happens in between those 2 points. And again, it doesn't really feel like you're traveling because the quest doesn't make you feel like you're on an adventure. You're just running errands. Where again, Breath of the Wild actually makes you feel like you're on an adventure, and like there's a reason for the traveling. GTA 5 is another example of a decent open world that likes to trick you into it being not a empty space, but really it is. GTA 5, like where most people travel, is in the city. And then you have the northern part of the map that is a lot of like the country, basically. And these worlds are, seemingly lived in, even though it's all of useless NPCs that you could interact with murder. The fact that there is a lot of buildings and there's a lot of things to at least look at, it makes the immersion there. Or like the country roads really feel like country roads. Or the mountain, you could, travel on the mountain. And the way you could travel to these points, there is a variety of ways to do so. So while this game gives you more of an illusion of a packed overworld, when really there's not a lot going on outside of certain keep areas, like every open world, it gives you that feeling there's a reason why I'm traveling. There's a reason why I'm going from point A to point B. And this world I'm living, I feel like I'm in it, opposed to I'm just here to do some quests and try to get to the next part of the story, opposed to actually caring about the journey opposed to the destination. And that's the careful balance that a open world game has to get you. An action game that isn't like open world, like Kingdom Hearts, Bayonetta, or you have plenty of platformers like Banjo-Kazooie and Mario that deal with a lot of smaller areas, so they could jam pack all these areas with a bunch of stuff because they don't have to worry about an entire world. All they have is these little sections that you have to worry about. And there's, very much a linear path that you go. Now, like Kingdom Hearts, while it's not 100% linear, it's linear. And you're trying to get to point A to point B, and the world, while not huge, except for the case of Kingdom Hearts 3, where they are decently big, but they're not an open world. They're still bigger, not open world. They don't need to make you feel like you're, on this journey, because the story and the levels kind of guide you through that anyway. But now, what if these games gave you complete control? What if instead of going to a zone, or to a world, or just another level, they opened up an entire world where getting from one world to another is a quest in itself? Kingdom Hearts 3 kind of did this with the open roaming sections of the Gummy Ship. Like, while games like Bayonetta are really awesome, the action starts to, if you binge the game, the action starts to get toned down. You're kind of going through the motions opposed to being excited for the next big thing. It's like, okay, well, I'm in another battle, okay, combo, okay, good, next battle, let's go. Like, while, yeah, the big moments do shine, each encounter doesn't feel special. Open world games just work differently. And none of these genres are doing anything wrong, per se, because they're in a respective genre. But within their own genre, they could do stuff wrong. Orange. I was doing so good. And then I had to say Orange. Assassin's Creed Origins, or Assassin's Creed Orange, the annoying orange, doesn't have an open world that is fun to traverse. Assassin's Creed 2 does, because everything is interactable. You don't have to go into every building, but you can interact with everything that's there. It's fun to traverse, and what you do feels important enough to go from point A to point B, and the world feels like it's lived in. My point is, just because there's no action going on, or you're not specifically doing something, means that your time is wasted. I sometimes play Breath of the Wild and pretend that I don't use fast travel sometimes, and I just pretend that I am on a little adventure, and I make my own story, and when it rains I try to find cover because I don't want to get wet, and there is an immersive sense to that some other games would not give me. Now, if you just go shooty gun bro and play Call of Duty and expect action in every corner, then that's your prerogative. I'm not here to judge your type of style, but to call a game bad because that is the type of style that you're more so into sucks. And you suck. But I've been blabbering for long enough. But those are my thoughts. A little more of a serious video. I wasn't planning on it to be as serious as it got, but I just really wanted to articulate my thoughts and add a little bit of humor. But I was just really talking about open world games. I promise I'll try to add more humor in the future. Or if you like this, or if you like the style, also say that. Tell me what you like or you don't like. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. But with that being said, I'd like to thank everybody for watching. And if you want to drop a like and a subscribe, go for it. Hopefully, if you want to get notifications on me uploading and seeing what I do with this channel, that's the way to do it. And you can also follow all my other social medias that you will be seeing down below, and join the Discord and all that fun jizzy jazz. And until next time.